Good evening. My name is Caroline Berryman, and I'm the Manager of Communications, Community Engagement, and Marketing in Transportation Services at York Region. I will be your host for tonight's meeting for the Transportation Master Plan update. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the residents and business owners who have joined us here tonight. Thank you for being here. The weather today has been unpredictable, so if you do lose internet connection, please be assured that you can always reach us at york.ca/TMP. We will be having another public information center in the fall. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on today is the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Chippewas of Georgina Island and the Mississaugas of the Credit. These lands are now home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge that York Region falls under Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties within several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. We look forward to hearing from you tonight. We will be using a tool called Mentimeter so you can provide us with your feedback. Before we get started, let's go over some engagement guidelines to ensure a smooth and effective meeting. Because we have such a large turnout, and for the stability of the platform, we have turned off cameras, sound, and the raise your hand option for a more effective interaction. We want this to be a relaxed and interactive space for everyone. Please contact us through the Q&A chat box. Additionally, you can also reach us at york.ca/TMP. The TMP project team will be monitoring the Q&As and responding accordingly. We may not be able to address the comments and questions we received this evening. However, we are committed to taking all questions back and providing responses through an FAQ on our webpage at york.ca/TMP. For those who haven't used it before, the Q&A button is located at the bottom of your screen, right beside the chat button. Please use the chat function specifically if you have any technical issues. This session will be recorded so that we can go back and review the comments and discussion. After tonight, the presentation will be available online, and your feedback, which will not be attributed to any specific person, will be uploaded by category for viewing. Comments can also be submitted after tonight's session by going to york.ca/TMP. We have enabled auto transcription for this meeting. While this system generally does a good job of capturing what is being said, there may be errors in the written text. If anyone needs clarification for anything being said, please feel free to reach out to us by submitting a comment using the question and answer function, and we will be happy to clarify. We invite comments. However, we do reserve the right to remove anything that may not be appropriate for this session. This is the first public information center, and tonight we will have a presentation on the Transportation Master Plan update, followed by an interactive session where you will have your say and hear about our next steps. At this time, I would like to introduce Brian Titherington, Director of Transportation Infrastructure Planning. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, and welcome to our Transportation Master Plan Open House. As mentioned, my name is Brian Titherington, and not only do I have the pleasure of overseeing the update to the Transportation Master Plan, I'm also a York Region resident who has a vested interest in the future of transportation. Like many others, my family often uses our car to get around. Prior to the pandemic, I had started using the new cycle lanes on Yonge Street in Newmarket to commute to work 1 or 2 days a week. Since the pandemic, like many others, we got a family dog, and we now use the multi-use path on St. John's Side Road, as well as the trails throughout Aurora. This evening is one of our first virtual open houses for transportation, so please bear with us if we have any minor technical issues, and let us know how this type of virtual format works for you, as it's something we'd like to explore for future consultations, even once the pandemic is behind us. Before we move into the presentation, I wanted to remind everyone that the Transportation Master Plan is a long-term plan that is intended to provide guidance over the next 30 years. As such, it does not get into any real detail on any specific projects. We will be discussing the long-term infrastructure plan as part of our next public meeting in the fall. But even then, potential projects will only be identified at a high level. Details of the timing for any improvement will be approved by Regional Council through our annual budget process. And details of what work will be undertaken for any project will be determined through project-specific environmental assessments. So if anyone has comments or concerns with respect to specific projects, we'll get appropriate project staff to follow up after this meeting. We'd also be happy to receive these comments via email at transportation@york.ca or through the website at york.ca/TMP. With that, I'd like to thank everyone again for giving us some of your time this evening. I'll turn it back.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to welcome our transportation staff who are here to help answer questions as knowledge experts, and to introduce Lauren Crawford, Manager of Transportation Long-Term Planning, and Carrie Hyde, Program Manager, Transportation Planning and Research, who will be starting us off tonight with a short presentation.
Thanks, Caroline, and good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well this evening. My name is Lauren Crawford, and thank you for joining us. As mentioned, I'll kick things off by giving some background this evening on the transportation planning process and our approach to update the Transportation Master Plan, or TMP. I'll then turn it over to Carrie to provide an overview of the findings from the public engagement work our team has completed to date. The results of our public engagement are forming the foundation for the TMP, including the vision for transportation, the values and strategies, and supporting the transportation network recommendations we'll be developing as we go forward. Then for the second half of tonight's session, which is the part we're all really looking forward to, our team will ask you for your thoughts on the priorities and needs for transportation in the region, as well as hearing from you on the direction that we're heading with the strategic planning work for the master plan. Next slide, please. We thought we would start this evening by providing some context on what is the TMP for those of you who may not be as familiar with it as we are or have that kind of background knowledge. The Transportation Master Plan is really York Region's long-term vision for the regional transportation network, and that includes roads, transit, and facilities for walking, cycling, and other active modes of travel. The plan will identify long-term transportation strategies, policy directions, and infrastructure needs to support planned population and employment growth for the next 30 years to 2051. The TMP is also a guide for planning regional transportation so that the network continues to support healthy and vibrant communities and economic growth. Because of the longer term outlook, the TMP focuses on outlining strategies to deliver the recommended transportation solutions that will need to be in place all the way to 2051. And the TMP at York Region uses a data-driven process, using data from surveys as well as from traffic sensors around the region to guide decision-making for the future transportation system and looking at it from a broad overall network perspective. As Brian already touched on during his introduction, the TMP does not look at or assess specific project needs or requirements. These specific needs are addressed later on during the environmental assessment process for each unique project. Next slide, please. So why is this important? We often get asked why the TMP is important. We feel the TMP acts as a tool for our staff to implement transportation action plans. It allows us to communicate and advocate for community needs and provide opportunities for us to enhance partnerships with our stakeholders and all levels of government. The master plan helps us meet goals such as providing travelers with convenient and accessible transportation options and better connecting the region's communities. The TMP informs several regional plans, including the official plan, the development charges bylaw, the region's fiscal strategy, and our 10-year roads and transit capital construction program. The TMP also supports a number of provincial plans, such as the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the Greater Golden Horseshoe Transportation Plan, and Metrolinx's regional transportation plan. So this evening, we're really looking for input from you as residents, travelers, and maybe as business operators too, to help us ensure that the plan we're updating aligns with your travel needs and of those of our growing and thriving communities for the next 30 years. Next slide, please. So we have made some significant accomplishments since implementing the 2016 Transportation Master Plan, and which we plan to build upon with this update to the master plan. I'm now going to show a brief video that highlights some of the region's most recent accomplishments. Hi, my name is Lauren Crawford. I'm the manager of Transportation Long-Term Planning at York Region. If you walk or cycle through the trails in Markham, you may have seen my family and I. It's one of our favorite places for walking our dogs and taking our kids for bike rides. I'm excited to be part of a team that will be updating the York Region Transportation Master Plan, or TMP. The TMP is a long-term plan that will shape the future of transportation in York Region, a future that supports healthy communities and economic growth by connecting travelers to destinations and efficiently moving goods. Input from the community has always played a lead role in the TMP since the first plan in 2002. Here's a sample of accomplishments since that time. Introducing Bus Rapid Transit to provide fast, convenient service and easy connections to urban centers. Bringing subway connections to York Region to support growing populations, stimulate economic growth, and reduce traffic congestion. Transforming roads and improving intersections to improve traffic flow, provide safer crossings for pedestrians and cyclists, and support public transit service investments. Installing high-occupancy vehicle lanes and bicycle facilities to provide more options to more people and save travel time. And partnering with the province to improve connections for travelers to and from Toronto. Whether you drive, walk, cycle, or take transit, visit york.ca/TMP to keep informed and join the conversations, which will impact many generations to come. So why are we updating the TMP now? Well, we know that the environment around us continues to change and evolve, and we must be flexible and ready to adapt. First and foremost, the province has released updated forecasts for the number of people and jobs that will come to York Region by 2051. So over the next 30 years, we're actually anticipating over 40% growth in population and employment to just over 2 million residents and 990,000 jobs. Our transportation network must be able to accommodate the future travel demand for those who walk, cycle, drive, or take transit to their destinations, as well as continue to move goods safely and efficiently across the region. The region has also updated its fiscal strategy since the last TMP update in 2016. The TMP needs to identify what we can afford to deliver and what infrastructure and services will rely on the partnership and collaboration with others, such as senior levels of government and the development industry, to name a few. We must continue to plan our infrastructure investments responsibly, and that means providing transportation services and maintaining infrastructure in a way that is affordable today and for future generations to come. We recognize that other external factors, such as disruptive technologies like connected or autonomous vehicles, climate change impacts, as well as traveler behaviors and travel pattern changes that we're seeing resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, may all have longer-term impacts that will require the region to be less prescriptive and more flexible and agile in our TMP going forward. Next slide, please. So at this point, I want to also give you a bit of an overview of the study process for delivering the TMP. We are taking a phased approach to update the TMP, and this is based on the lessons learned from our 2016 master plan, and so that our next TMP provides a really clear vision of what the region's transportation network should look like by 2051, and our strategies on how to achieve this. So our TMP study is structured into 3 phases, and I'll go over the key inputs and outputs for each phase. Phase 1, where we are right now, is a strategic planning phase, and it's focusing on developing the foundations for the TMP. These foundations include the vision for transportation, which we've been referring to internally as our TMP purpose statement, the values, which act as our guiding principles for staff to assess projects and programs, and strategies, which will help us implement projects and initiatives. The findings from various surveys, including the Transportation Tomorrow survey, the COVID Travel Time survey, our most recent Transportation and Community Values and 15-minute community surveys, as well as a number of jurisdictional scans, are all helping us inform the strategic planning work. So we're here this evening in our first public open house to share the results of this work and how it helps shape the transportation vision, values, and strategies, and provides the rationale to update our transportation network plans. Shortly, we'll be moving into phase 2, which will take us through to the end of the year, and we'll focus on the development of the transportation network alternatives, identification of the preferred network, and infrastructure recommendations. And as well, we'll be completing a number of background studies and developing the TMP policy directions. We do anticipate coming back in the fall, late fall most likely, with another virtual public open house to share our findings. Phase 3 is the final phase, which will outline our path forward with the development of the draft TMP, and it will summarize the strategic plan, the recommended transportation networks, and policy directions. We anticipate a final public open house in early 2022. We will then update the draft plan based on citizen and stakeholder feedback and take it to council for endorsement to finalize that plan in June of 2022. I do want to reiterate that throughout the TMP study process, our team will be reaching out to our citizens and stakeholders for input on the TMP, and we'll be using social media and digital tools in addition to these 3 public house sessions, which I mentioned, and the one that we're at here today, including that one. So at this point, I'm now going to pass the presentation over to Carrie to share our team's recent findings on travel trends and behaviors that we've gathered throughout the public engagement and research efforts to date, and that I just touched on as part of our phase 1 activities. So Carrie, over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. So as Lauren mentioned, I'll be sharing an overview of our recent findings on travel trends and behaviors and how we're using what we've heard to update the TMP. Next slide, please. Thank you. There are areas where we are doing quite well, and this slide shows travel behaviors that are trending in the right direction. When we say the right direction, what we mean is that travelers have a range of transportation options available to them, providing them with choices for how and when they travel. We know that fewer young people are driving, as the percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds with a license has decreased over the last 25 years. On the other end of the age spectrum, we've also noticed that people tend to drive less as they age, with the percentage of people who drive at age 75 plus close to 20% lower than the percentage of those between the ages of 26 and 64 who drive. In terms of what modes of transportation people are using, travel by walking, cycling, and taking transit has increased by several percentage points since the early 2000s, supporting our push for a greater range of transportation options for our citizens. Lastly, the number of people keeping their travels within the region has also increased, indicating that the region continues to be a desirable place not only for residents commuting into Toronto, but for the business community and visitors alike. On this slide, we have some areas where we can do better. One area where we see a big opportunity is to focus in on those trips under 2 kilometers, exploring transportation alternatives as a solution so people have a variety of options, from walking and cycling to using our mobility on request service, options for getting from point A to B. And this will allow us to make better use of our network. With the average number of people in each car decreasing over the years, we are also looking at what we can do to encourage more carpooling and transit use. And lastly, an area that affects most of our lives at one point or another is the trip to school. The number of students walking to school has steadily decreased since 2001. And although we already have programs in place, such as the Making Tracks program that promotes walking and bicycling to school, we are looking at opportunities where we can enhance these programs and make walking and cycling to school a part of the North American culture. Changing the attitudes and behaviors of kids and their parents will make a huge impact, as our children are the travelers of the future. I'd now like to share some of our key themes, which are based on the surveys and counselor interviews we recently conducted and appear to reflect the transportation and community values of the day. So what have we heard? Well, we've heard that one size does not fit all. We have a diverse region, and it's important as we plan for transportation to 2051 that we recognize the uniqueness of the communities within. We've also heard that connections are key, not only connections between communities, but connections within communities to key destinations such as transit hubs, schools, and stores, as well as the connection between transportation and land use planning, as transportation is integral to community building and placemaking. We've also heard that citizens want travel options and choice. People are interested in taking a range of transportation modes, it seems, depending on where they're going and how safe they feel. We've also heard about the importance of having a good fiscal strategy, working closely with our partners, and exploring opportunities for innovation. I'll now share some of our survey findings in a bit more detail. When asked about top transportation priorities, respondents indicated that easy access to destinations that are essential for daily living, for example, grocery stores and parks, is a top priority for them, followed closely by having viable transportation options from walking and cycling to transit to driving, getting to one's destination safely, and having affordable transportation options available to them. Citizens also told us that the most important factor when deciding what mode of transportation to use for their travels is the shortest or quickest travel time, followed by convenience, a consistent and reliable travel time, as well as cost. As you can see, there is consistency between what people are saying are their top transportation priorities and what factors they most consider when deciding how to travel, from cost and affordability to easy and convenient access to destinations within their neighborhood. Safety was a key theme reiterated throughout the survey, as was the desire to get places as quickly and reliably as possible. More specifically, when asked how people are currently traveling, we heard that the majority are currently traveling by vehicle and would ideally like to continue doing so. However, interestingly, compared to those currently walking, bicycling, or taking transit, so this is about 14%, including work, school, and personal trips, double that number would ideally like to be walking, bicycling, or taking transit, with 32% of people indicating they would be interested in using an active or sustainable mode for their work school trips, and 26% indicating an interest for their personal trips. So there's a huge opportunity to increase the number of pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users over the next several years, as there's clearly a keen interest in using these modes for a range of different trips. Further, when asked what it would take for citizens to consider walking, bicycling, or taking transit instead of driving their vehicle, the top barriers identified were whether it took a reasonable time or was a reasonable distance to get there, and this is specific to walking, whether it's safe, so the importance of having well-connected, well-maintained facilities and protection from traffic, and this relates to both walking and bicycling specifically, whether there was a route to get them to their destination, and this was a response more specific to bicycling, and whether it reduced their commute time and was consistent and reliable. And this related primarily to taking transit. If anyone is interested in more details on what we've heard through our surveys, please let us know, as we would be more than happy to share them. We know that the future is uncertain and still unfolding. Therefore, the TMP has to be flexible and nimble because things will continue to change, including more people working from home, the potential for more variable work hours, increased e-commerce and deliveries, and technology enhancements. And this presents an opportunity to do things differently. As we emerge from the pandemic, we are starting to analyze and assess demands on the network and plan for the future. We will be looking at scenarios where things are changing through our work on travel demand and forecasting, which we will be coming back with in the fall at our second open house on the transportation network. So now that we've shared some of our key findings, we want to hear from you. We've taken everything we've heard to date and used the information to draft a vision, some values and strategies for the TMP, and now we want to share them with you and hear your thoughts and ideas. Thank you for your time and attention. At this point, I will hand things back over to Caroline.
Thank you, Carrie. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will be using Mentimeter so you can have your say. I would like to introduce our facilitator, Susie Salakian, from our team, who will guide us through the next part of our PIC.
Thanks, Caroline. So we have a number of questions we'd like to get your thoughts on. The first 5 relate to transportation needs and priorities, and they align with some of the questions we've asked through our surveys and other engagement activities. So we will take you through these, as well 3 additional questions at the end on our draft vision, values, and strategies. This is the time when we get to hear from you, and you get to share your thoughts on transportation in York Region. We will be using a tool called Menti, and you can access it through your web browser. We will give everyone a couple of minutes to log on. It's easy to use and does not require a download. Simply click on the web link and enter the code on the screen. That's 9512-3731. So again, please visit www.menti.com. You can use Mentimeter on a phone or a tablet, or by opening a second internet tab on your computer. What you will see on my screen are the results as they come in. So we will see everyone's responses live. We now will start with the first question. So you should all see the first question come up on your Menti as well as on my screen. Okay. So starting with our first question. What are your top transportation priorities? Please rank in the order of preference. Conventional transit or mobility on request, rapid transit, road improvements, active transportation projects such as pedestrian or cycling, or any other projects or priorities. So by conventional transit, we are talking about YRT, and mobility on request does refer to a ride sharing service that allows you to request transit when and where you need it. By rapid transit, we are talking about the central lane buses, the subways, and the GO stations. And many of our questions also have an other option. If you are comfortable, please do share what you mean by other in the Q&A.
Susie, we've just had a request to repeat the Menti code. It's 9512-3731, and you should be able to see it at the top of the slide.
You can already see some responses coming through, which is great. And we are noticing that many of you are responding with rapid transit. This is certainly in line with what we've been hearing through the feedback through our engagement activities and our community surveys, as we are hearing younger people are driving less and taking more sustainable modes of transportation. So we are definitely aligned. Okay. And just an interesting fact to share. Did you know that York Region has 134 vehicles in its mobility on request fleet? That's definitely an interesting fact to note. So we will be sharing some interesting facts as we move along. So moving on to question number 2. We'd like to know, what are your top concerns about traveling in York Region? So this is an open-ended question, so please feel free to share as many ideas as you have. We would love to hear them. So just give folks a few minutes to reply. Okay, safety for cyclists and pedestrians, yep. Congestion, that's one that we hear quite frequently. Traffic. And just an interesting note again, did you know that at the height of COVID, demand on our roads actually decreased by 50%, but we're currently back up to that 85 to 90% of pre-COVID traffic. And similarly, since the pandemic, the percentage of people walking and cycling has also changed from 7.1% to 13% during that morning peak period between 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
We're getting some really great answers here, good feedback. Thank you so much. It's actually very similar to what we've already been hearing through our surveys and a number of different public outreach platforms that we've been using. So really happy to see this coming through. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for your
Crime, safety,
comments.
congestion. Yep, Lisa, it's great.
So moving on to question number 3. So what is the most important to you when deciding how to get to your destination? Consistent and reliable travel time, cost, convenience, environmental impact, shortest or quickest travel time, reliability of third party, such as carpooling or ride sharing, or any other factors. And as responses come in, I'll just share another interesting fact. So according to our surveys, while most people generally travel to their destinations by car, when they're going to parks and green spaces and bus stops and destinations that are closest to their homes, the majority are actually walking. So interesting to note that most of the responses are landing in the shortest or quickest travel time, which I believe is, again, very aligned to some of the feedback that we've been hearing through our engagement activities.
Exactly. And again, I guess just reiterating what Susie had mentioned before, for any folks that have selected other and would like to share, please do so in the Q&A, because we will be reviewing that after the session and taking the feedback in.
So moving on to question number 4. We would like to know what would encourage you to walk and cycle more often. Sidewalks or cycling facilities are easy to access and convenient to use. Walking or cycling facilities are safe and comfortable. Scenery, ambiance, or nature. Places to gather and interact, such as picnic benches or landscaping. Good maintenance, such as paths clear of debris or regular ice or snow removal. Shade and protection from weather elements. Adequate lighting, signage, wayfinding, and maps, or any other factors. And I'll just share the Lake to Lake cycling route and walking trail is a 121-kilometer recreational and commuter trail that will connect Lake Simcoe to Lake Ontario. And did you know that 98 of those kilometers are in York Region? And this trail is now actually 86% complete. So that would definitely encourage me to walk and cycle more often. Okay. And as we can see from the responses, we've got 54 for walking and cycling facilities are safe and comfortable, followed shortly by sidewalks and cycling facilities are easy to access and convenient to use. And again, if you have any other ideas, see that some folks have responded with other, please do share in the Q&A. Okay, moving on to the next question. What would encourage you to take transit more often? Please choose your top 3. Fares are more affordable. So here we are specifically talking about the cost of fares, more frequent transit service, transit stops that are closer to you, reduced travel time, consistent and reliable travel time, or enhanced amenities such as upgraded seating, free Wi-Fi in the shelters, or any other. I'll mention that York Region is working hard to improve our greenhouse gas footprint. As our bus fleet is a significant generator of greenhouse gases, we are completing an electric bus pilot in Newmarket, and we are working towards an emission reduction of 60% by the year 2051. Okay, I can see from the responses, most people have responded with more frequent transit service, and then followed by reduced travel time, and fares are more affordable. So cost definitely is a factor.
And Susie, we're seeing some really good feedback in terms of the other to these responses to the questions that really tie back into ideas about better connectivity, whether it's to trails or transit, if you're, you don't live right on a direct rapid transit route, safety. So this is really great feedback, things that we can take forward and look at with specific projects as well as we move forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Lauren. Okay. So we'll shift our attention now to our vision, values, and strategies. Lauren is going to provide some context for what the team was thinking as they drafted the vision, values, and strategies. And as Lauren noted earlier, an important component of that strategic planning phase of the TMP involves developing the foundations for the TMP. So these foundations include the vision for transportation, the values, and the strategies. So these last three questions will focus specifically on these, which were developed based on the information gathered through the surveys and interviews, as well as jurisdictional scans through phase 1 of the TMP. So here is our draft vision statement. Plan, build, operate, and maintain a transportation network for all travelers that is safe, reliable, future-ready, sustainable, and balances the needs of the unique communities we serve. Well, just a quick reminder of what the vision statement is. The vision statement is a statement of a project's aspirations and articulates the desired future state of York Region as it relates to the transportation system. It shapes decision-making and serves as a roadmap for where the region wants to be at the end of the TMP horizon. So all recommendations within the TMP should progress toward achieving the vision. So at this point, we wanted to just ask, are we missing anything? Are we on the right track with this vision statement? Is there anything that we haven't considered? And I see some great feedback coming through the responses. Equitable sounds good. As long as sustainable includes environmental sustainability. Fiscal sustainability should be mentioned.
So Susie, we can maybe slow down just a little bit and we can let people have some time to continue to provide some comments. It means a couple of requests just to I think, slow down a little bit. Thank you everyone for this feedback. It's super helpful. As we mentioned right at the get-go, it's our first time doing a public open house in this virtual space. So this kind of feedback is really very much appreciated. Wow, lots of great comments. I think one of the challenges that we had as staff when we were trying to come up with a single statement to try and encapsulate everything that we want to be, we want transportation to be over the next 30 years, and yet trying to keep the statement fairly succinct and clear. So it really does help getting this feedback, and certainly, the remaining work that we'll be doing on the values and in particular the strategies will really help us take a more fulsome, some more fulsome ideas forward, as long as they line up with that vision is really our intent. So the feedback that I'm seeing coming through is great. It's super helpful. The other thing I just wanted to note was we're seeing tons of questions come through the Q&A, which is fantastic. We have staff here helping us answer these as we're going through. So if we don't get to all of your questions, it's really just because of the time and staff's ability to respond in time. So what we will do, we will be taking things back to our broader project teams and staff, because I know there's some more specific projects questions that have come through about projects. So we will take those back to staff to help us answer those. And we will be just a reminder, we will be putting all of the information from tonight's public open house up on our website at york.ca/TMP. So that will include a recording of the presentation, as well as the information gathered here during this interactive session. And just a reminder again, this part will be anonymous. And we will also include answers to our questions, the questions and answers that have come through. Okay, how are we doing? It looks like maybe we're kind of slowing down on this one now with responses, Susie. Maybe we can move on to the next question.
Sure, yeah. Moving on to the next piece. Okay, so here are our proposed values: safety, inclusivity, and equity, protecting the environment, affordability for today and tomorrow, balancing the needs of communities and commuters, and future ready. So again, at this time, we want to just ask the group, are we on the right track? Are we missing anything with these values? Or is there anything that we haven't considered? And just as a quick reminder, the values are created to provide us with guidance on how to realistically achieve our vision. These are the areas that are the most important to us that we consider when we are looking at what projects to proceed with. Potential initiatives must hit maybe not all, but at least most of these values. If they don't, we do have to ask ourselves if it's really a project that we want to move forward with, as it may not help us achieve our vision. So again, at this time, we just want to ask the group, is there anything we're missing or that we haven't considered?
And I think too, Susie, maybe just a reminder to folks that, you know, these are really just some ideas that we've had so far. So they're not baked in it at this point in time. That's really the purpose of tonight's open house, is to bounce these ideas off of folks to see if they really do make sense and capture what we should be considering as we move forward.
That's a good point, Lauren.
I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions about any of the ones that we've chosen. I know sometimes some of them can seem, we want to make sure that they're clear and the meaning is clear. I know inclusivity and equity, we've had quite a bit of discussion about. Our team is working with the University of Toronto and a number of municipalities actually across Canada on an initiative called Mobilizing Justice, which focuses really on the idea that the transportation system should be equitable for all, so not necessarily equal, but equitable. And so that's one of the concepts that we've been exploring quite recently, and one that we were thinking would be important to carry forward into the TMP. I think safety is probably pretty self-explanatory. Probably protecting the environment is too. The concept maybe of affordability for today and tomorrow, so that's really just looking at, you know, the fine balance between planning new investments to support people and jobs today and but at the same time being mindful of the cost to continue to maintain and keep those assets, whether the road or transit or active transportation facilities, those assets in a good state of repair as we move forward into the future without burdening future generations with that cost for the capital what we're building out today. And another area that we've been exploring, this whole idea of balancing needs of communities and commuters. So just the concept of a regional road, is it, you know, is its main purpose to serve, the throughput of commuters so they get from point A to point B most efficiently? Or is it to provide a sense of community and neighborhood for the people that actually live adjacent to that road? So it's really the balance between the two, because I don't think it's one extreme or the other. And we're coming to recognize the value that the transportation network has in fostering communities and that neighborhood feel. I think that's come out quite strongly in the surveys we've been doing. And part of that might really just be as we've all sort of been living through this pandemic and getting out a little bit more, and hopefully looking at different options for getting around if we're able to. Let's see, how are we doing? All right, so maybe we can, looks to me like it's kind of slowing down with the number of responses. Is that right, Susie? Maybe we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, sure. So our last question is on our draft strategies. So our strategies, here are our proposed strategies: making the best use of our roads and structures and the services we provide, encouraging all types of travel, providing a resilient transportation network that is adaptable to the changing environment, enhancing partnerships, and actively engaging and educating all stakeholders. So again, just wanted to get the thoughts from the group on if we are on the right track or if we are missing anything. And just as a quick reminder, strategies set up a plan for how we are going to achieve our vision. They help guide us on how to get there, and they tie back to some of the themes in the vision statement, such as safety and connections. They help us build and create action plans that ensure we deliver the right projects.
So really, I guess we just want to make sure that these strategies are fairly straightforward. They're easy to understand. And if anyone has any thoughts or ideas on things we should change or maybe tweak, that would be great to hear. And just another thought. So these are really these strategies, they're directions for our strategies that we'll be taking. So they're not a specific project or initiative, but they help guide the actions and the initiatives and ensure that our projects head us in those directions. Okay.
It looks like we've got quite a few responses. That was the last question on our Menti. So with that, I'll just say thank you to everybody for all of the feedback, and I will pass it back now to Caroline.
Thank you, Susie. I would like to thank everyone for their feedback this evening, and thank you to our speakers. We heard some very interesting things tonight that I would like to recap briefly. We heard that your top transportation priorities are rapid transit. Your top concerns about traveling in York Region are safety for cyclists and pedestrians, congestion, traffic, walking, and cycling facilities that are safe and comfortable would encourage you to walk and cycle more often. And finally, more frequent transit service. There have been lots of questions about the subway and other projects in York Region, and we would like to remind everyone that questions and comments can be submitted to york.ca/TMP. You can also send comments directly to Metrolinx through their website at youngsubwayext@metrolinx.com. Your questions in the Q&A are important to us, and whatever we haven't had an opportunity to answer tonight, we will be reviewing the questions with our team and providing answers through our webpage, york.ca/TMP. As a reminder, the information shared this evening will be available on our website. Based on your input today, we're going to finalize our vision, values, and strategies so that we can report back to Council in the fall. Later in the fall, we will have our second open house to talk about the transportation networks. If you have any further questions, we encourage you to please visit our webpage or email us at transportation@york.ca. At this time, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight, for contributing your ideas to the future of transportation in York Region. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.